You're standing on a beach 50,000 years ago, staring at open ocean with no land in sight. You have no map, no compass, no idea what's out there. And somehow, your ancestors decided the answer wasn't to stay home. It was to build a raft and find out. By the time anyone invented writing, humans had already reached nearly every livable landmass on Earth. No satellites, no instruments, no way to see farther than the horizon. So, how did a species with nothing but basic tools and a stubborn curiosity manage to spread itself across the entire planet? The short answer is walking, mostly. The long answer involves some of the most audacious ocean crossings in human history, made by people who had absolutely no way of knowing land was even out there. It starts in Africa, where modern humans first evolved. Sometime around 70,000 to 60,000 years ago, groups of humans began moving out of the continent in meaningful numbers, spreading along coastlines and river systems into the Arabian Peninsula and beyond. This wasn't a single planned expedition. It was countless small groups, generation after generation, each one pushing a little further than the last, following coastlines, fresh water, and game, without any sense that they were participating in something that would eventually cover the globe. Coastlines mattered enormously here. Moving along a shore gave early humans a predictable, resource-rich highway: fish, shellfish, birds, freshwater runoff, all in one continuous strip of land. Researchers studying this period sometimes call it the coastal dispersal route, and it likely let humans move across huge distances, from East Africa all the way towards Southeast Asia, far faster than if they had been cutting straight through unfamiliar interior terrain. Here's the part that surprises people. To reach Australia, coastlines weren't enough. Even during the Ice Age, when sea levels were dramatically lower than today, there was never a complete land bridge connecting Southeast Asia to Australia and New Guinea, then joined together as a single landmass researchers call Sahul. A deep water gap, sometimes called the Wallace Line, remained in place the entire time, tens of kilometers of open ocean at its narrowest crossing points, with land invisible from either shore. Archaeological sites in northern Australia, including one called Madjed Bebe, have produced evidence suggesting people arrived there at least 65,000 years ago, meaning humans deliberately crossed open water, out of sight of land, tens of thousands of years before anything resembling a compass, a written map, or a metal tool existed anywhere on Earth. Nobody knows exactly what those first vessels looked like. They were almost certainly simple: rafts or basic boats made from bamboo, reeds, or lashed logs, none of which survive in the archaeological record. What we're left with is the result: entire populations on the far side of a water gap that couldn't be crossed by accident. This wasn't drifting. It required intention, probably repeated attempts, and people willing to get on the water without knowing what, if anything, was on the other side. The Pacific tells an even stranger story, and it happens far more recently. Long after Australia was settled, starting only around 3,000 years ago, seafaring peoples began pushing out from Southeast Asia and the Western Pacific into some of the most remote islands on the planet. Over the following centuries, their descendants reached Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, and eventually, in a series of extraordinary voyages, places as far apart as Hawaii, New Zealand, and Easter Island, 3 points forming a triangle that spans a significant portion of the entire Pacific Ocean. They did this using a navigation system now called wayfinding, reading ocean swells, star positions, cloud formations, and even the flight patterns of birds to hold a course across thousands of kilometers of open water with no instruments at all. This knowledge was passed down orally, master navigator to apprentice, refined over generations of real voyages, real mistakes, and real survival. In the 1970s, a traditional Micronesian navigator named Mau Piailug helped prove this wasn't legend by guiding a reconstructed voyaging canoe called the Hokulea, roughly 2,500 miles from Hawaii to Tahiti, using nothing but wayfinding techniques, demonstrating in real time what oral tradition had claimed all along. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of the globe, humans were solving a completely different problem: reaching the Americas. During the last ice age, so much of the planet's water was locked into glaciers that sea levels dropped enough to expose a land connection between Siberia and Alaska, a region researchers call Beringia. Sometime before around 15,000 years ago, and possibly considerably earlier according to some contested but increasingly discussed archaeological sites, people crossed into North America, either by walking across this exposed land bridge or by following the coastline in boats along a route sometimes called the Kelp Highway, rich in fish, shellfish, and marine mammals the entire way south. From there, the spread was staggeringly fast by any measure. Within a few thousand years, human populations had moved through North America, into Central America, and all the way down to the southern tip of South America, adapting along the way to deserts, rainforests, high mountain plateaus, and everything in between. A site in southern Chile called Monte Verde has long been dated to around 14,500 years ago, though a major 2026 study has challenged that figure, arguing for a much younger date, a dispute that's still actively unresolved among archaeologists as of this recording. What ties all of this together isn't technology. None of these journeys depended on anything we'd recognize as advanced equipment. What they depended on was something harder to put in a museum case: an apparent, persistent willingness to keep moving into the unknown, generation after generation, driven by some combination of curiosity, necessity, and the simple fact that somewhere, someone was always willing to find out what was over the horizon or past it entirely. By the time any human civilization had invented writing, this process was already essentially finished. Every continent except Antarctica already had people living on it, many of them in places so remote that reaching them required feats of navigation. Modern sailors with GPS and steel-hulled ships still study with genuine respect. It happened slowly, invisibly. One raft, one coastline, one open water gamble at a time, without a single person alive at any point fully realizing the scale of what their species was quietly accomplishing. You're still standing on that beach 50,000 years ago, looking at water with no land in sight. You don't know what's out there. Neither did anyone before you who made this same choice. And somehow, that was never quite enough reason to stay.